Beneath the shifting fog of a northern shore, a stone waits. It is carved with runes no one should have carved, in a land where Vikings were never supposed to tread. The locals call it the stone that shouldn't exist. At first glance, it appears simple, just a weathered slab, half buried in earth and moss. Yet its markings whisper of voyages beyond maps, of journeys erased from memory. Its surface is scarred by wind and rain, but the runes endure, as if unwilling to vanish. They stand as a riddle etched in stone, a message that has outlived the voices of its makers. To some, it is evidence of Norse sailors reaching these distant shores centuries before Columbus ever glimpsed the New World. To others, it is nothing but a trick, an invention of later times meant to confuse, to claim, or to deceive. Yet whether truth or hoax, the stone refuses to fade into obscurity. For generations, its presence has baffled explorers, historians, and storytellers alike. Each new theory casts light for a moment, only for the mystery to darken once more. If the Vikings crossed so far, what else did they leave behind, hidden beneath forests, rivers, and forgotten coasts? And if they did not, who carved these runes, and why? The land around the stone is quiet, the silence broken only by the rustle of leaves and the cry of distant crows. But in that silence lies a question that unsettles the past itself. One stone, one mystery, and a silence that refuses to break. But where does this story truly begin? The Viking Age stretched from the late 8th century into the 11th, a time when carved dragon-headed longships cut across stormy seas. They raided coastal towns, traded silks and silver, and settled new lands, from the icy fjords of Greenland to the sunlit markets of Byzantium. Their reach was vast, but it was believed to stop short of certain shores. Beyond the Atlantic, the maps were blank. The sagas told of Greenland, of Vinland, and of distant voyages, but little more. Then came the discovery, a carved stone far from Scandinavia, lying in soil it should never have touched. Its runes, scratched deep into weathered rock, spoke of journeys, of hardship, and of men who died far from home. Yet no saga mentions this voyage. No chronicles recall this place. The silence of the written record only deepens the weight of the stone itself. For those who first uncovered it, the shock was undeniable. If authentic, it could rewrite history, shifting the known boundaries of Viking exploration. But if it were false, it stood as one of the most elaborate forgeries ever created. Was it evidence of a forgotten expedition, or a riddle planted centuries later to deceive? The stone sits at a crossroads of doubt and wonder. Scholars argue, locals whisper, and all the while, the forest presses in, growing thicker each year, as if nature itself is determined to guard the secret. If the past left us this single lonely clue, what else waits in silence, hidden beneath the earth, waiting to be uncovered? Stories rise like mist where certainty fails. Some say the stone was a marker, left by weary sailors seeking a way home after losing companions to hunger, storms, or unseen enemies. Others whisper of ghostly lights that drift near its resting place, as if the spirits of those long dead still linger, watching the land where they met their end. In villages nearby, tales passed from elders to children paint the Vikings as both conquerors and wanderers, men who could summon storms with chance, or vanish into the night like shadows on the sea. But legend alone cannot build history. When archaeologists come, shovels and brushes in hand, they expect proof, weapons forged in Norse style, coins stamped with distant kings, fragments of longhouses buried in soil. Instead, the earth yields nothing, no bones, no iron nails, no shards of pottery, nothing but the stone itself, its runes weathered yet still sharp enough to trouble the mind. The silence of the ground contrasts sharply with the noise of folklore. If Vikings left their mark here, why did time erase every trace but one? How can a single slab stand alone, without camps, without fires, without graves to bear witness? Some suggest the stone was carried here from afar, moved like a relic, and planted in this quiet place. Others argue it was carved in more recent times, a riddle meant to stir the world into wonder. And yet, if it is truly Viking, then it represents something far greater. A story history has chosen to forget, and so the question lingers. If this stone is real, why does the land itself refuse to speak? In the modern age, the stone is weighed and measured by competing voices. Scholars of runes examine its markings with care, declaring some strokes too clumsy, too uneven, unlike the steady hands of true Viking carvers. Linguists trace oddities in the script, symbols that seem out of place, hinting at influences that emerged centuries after the Viking Age had ended. These details lead some to argue that the slab is a clever forgery, crafted in later times to rewrite history or to claim an ancient link to these wild lands. Yet not all agree. Other experts point to faint similarities in rune forms, to details that echo inscriptions found on distant stones across Scandinavia. They suggest the work may represent a regional variation, a style developed by sailors far from home, cut with hands tired from long travel. There are even whispers of forgotten sagas, fragments of oral tales that speak of voyages lost to time, expeditions that never reached the pages of recorded history. Could this stone be the only surviving whisper of a vanished journey? Speculation stretches in every direction. Some believe the slab was a grave marker left for fallen companions whose bones have long since turned to dust. Others think it was meant as a warning, carved for those who might follow the same perilous path. Still more wonder if it was a claim of discovery, a statement that this land was seen, named, and then abandoned. But each explanation leads to more questions than answers, and the mystery tightens like a storm cloud. If truth and falsehood are both possible, then where does the line between history and myth truly lie? The stone that shouldn't exist remains in its lonely place, half buried, half believed. Centuries have passed, yet it endures, daring each generation to decide what it means. It does not yield to carbon tests, nor to the pens of scholars, nor to the whispers of legend. It is a fragment caught between two worlds, the world of proven history and the world of shadowed memory. Perhaps it was left by Vikings whose names are lost forever. Perhaps it is the invention of a hand long dead, seeking to deceive. Or perhaps it is something else entirely, a sign of a past we have not yet dared to uncover. The stone waits, silent, watching. It offers no answers, only the weight of its presence. And so the question lingers, as cold as the northern fog. What other truths lie hidden, waiting to be found, in places where history swears they should not exist? Beneath the rolling fog of Scandinavia's northern coast, whispers tell of runes carved not in their time, but in another century altogether. Mysterious symbols etched into stone where they should never have been. What hand could have placed them there? A Viking traveler? A wandering scribe? Or something stranger still? The story begins with a discovery that should have been impossible. Runic letters cut into ancient rock, their style belonging to an age far removed from the world in which they were found. They sit as silent witnesses, standing against the storm-lashed cliffs and pine-dark forests, as if daring us to question the very flow of time. This is the tale of runes carved in the wrong century, a puzzle that defies history itself. For within these marks lies a question that has haunted scholars, storytellers, and dreamers alike. Did someone walk these lands centuries before they should have? Or has the past itself been altered, piece by piece, like a tapestry undone and rewoven in the dark? Tonight, we follow that question into shadow, across the long winter nights of the Viking Age, where myths of gods and giants bled into the waking world, across stormy seas where longships vanished without trace, and into valleys where entire settlements disappeared as though erased from memory. The deeper the trail goes, the colder it becomes. For what do these misplaced runes reveal about a vanished people and a history that refuses to stay in its place? Could the past itself have been rewritten? In the 9th century, Viking longships cut across seas like knives, their sails flashing red against storm clouds. Warriors, traders, and explorers carved runes into stone and wood, leaving messages for gods and kin. Each mark was more than writing. It was memory, magic, and warning. They told of voyages into uncharted waters, of victories and deaths on distant shores, of oaths sworn in blood beneath the gaze of Odin. To carve a rune was to bind the present to eternity. Yet centuries later, in a moss-choked valley, runes were found, carved in a style that should not have existed for generations. The stone bore markings belonging to a later age, yet it lay buried in a land where no Vikings were meant to walk in that time. To scholars, the stone is an intruder, a voice speaking centuries too soon, a fragment of history out of place, and around it, the land keeps its silence. Local sagas tell of a settlement that vanished without trace. Its people gone, their houses swallowed by earth, leaving behind no graves, no burned ruins, not even bones. Only the stone remained, whispering of a time that did not fit. Some claim the stone proves Vikings reached this valley long before the chronicles admit. Others whisper of stranger forces, of knowledge carried across centuries, of echoes pressed backward through time. Had a forgotten traveler carved these runes centuries before his people's arrival? Or had the past itself been altered, the lines of history carved and recarved like the stone itself? And so the trail of the vanished settlement leads us deeper into the half-light of legend. What secrets do the old tales hold? The old stories speak of ghostly travelers who came at night, pale lights drifting through blackened forests, voices chanting in tongues no villager could understand, and strange carvings left behind in stone. Some claim these runes were the handwriting of gods, seared into rock as warnings to mortals. Others swore they were the marks of a cursed people, doomed to wander through time itself, leaving signs of their passage, but never their bodies. In sagas told by firelight, shepherds spoke of hearing horns echoing in valleys long after the people were gone. Hunters claimed to stumble upon footprints that led nowhere, fading in the frost. To them, the runes were not messages but omens, reminders that the world of men was never far from the world of spirits. Archaeologists, however, uncover a little more than fragments. Charred timbers buried deep in the earth, as if from houses burned long ago, but without a trace of fire sweeping the land. A scattering of iron nails rusted into dust. No hoards of treasure, no weapons, no graves. And always the single stone with its impossible runes. Too ancient, too early, standing in lonely defiance of time. Yet the silence weighs heavier than the evidence. The absence of bones. The absence of burial mounds. The absence of battle scars. It is as though the settlement was not destroyed, but erased, as if swallowed by something unseen. Were these runes the desperate work of forgotten hands, carved to resist oblivion? Or were they the remnants of a story never meant to be told? And if even stones can lie about their age, what other secrets of history still wait, hidden in the shadows? Scholars argue that the stone is nothing more than a forgery, a trick of later centuries when rune carving was revived in folk art and old symbols were copied without precision. They claim the dating is flawed, that the lines carved into the rock are too sharp, too fresh to belong to the distant centuries they are tied to. In this view, the stone is a false relic, a curiosity born not from the Viking age, but from wishful thinking. Yet others resist the simple answer. They argue that the style of the runes cannot be dismissed so easily, that the cuts match authentic tools of the Viking period. Could it be that travelers reached farther earlier than history records, carving their mark into a place no chronicle dares to mention? If true, it would rewrite the very timeline of exploration, pushing the Viking story into unknown lands and forgotten years. Beyond the halls of academia, stranger voices whisper. They speak of storms where the veil between times is torn, of travelers who step out of their century and into another. Some point to tales of time slips, of worlds overlapping in lightning and fog. Others suggest the runes are echoes, carved not by men, but by the shifting fabric of time itself. Even scientists admit there's no clear answer. The stone exists, its runes should not. The silence of the vanished settlement deepens the question rather than closes it. If truth cannot explain it, imagination will try. But in the space between reason and myth, the shadow grows. And so the question remains, what is carved deeper? The stone itself, or the shadow it casts upon history? In the hush of ancient forests, the stone still waits. Its runes shimmer faintly when the fog rolls in, as though the past itself is breathing through its lines. The vanished settlement remains lost, its people gone into silence. History offers no answers, legends only deepen the night. Archaeology brings fragments, but never the whole. What endures is the unease, the sense that something moved through time, carving its mark where it did not belong. Perhaps the runes are nothing more than misread scratches, the work of later hands. Or perhaps they are exactly what they appear to be, a message carved centuries too soon, a glimpse of a past that should not exist. And if so, then what else lies hidden, waiting to remind us that time is not as unbroken as we believe? A compass points north, unless it doesn't. On the storm-lashed shores of the North Atlantic, there was once said to be a single artifact that guided Viking explorers toward Vinland, a land beyond the horizon, rich, fertile, and strange. This compass was no ordinary tool of wood and iron. It was a beacon, a secret held close by the few who dared to sail past the edges of their known world. But when that compass shattered, its fragments carried with them not only the promise of discovery, but the heavy weight of disappearance. The tale of the broken compass of Vinland is not written in stone. It drifts instead through sagas, half buried in sand, tangled in seaweed, and whispered in hushed tones by sailors who swore they had seen its shadow. What was this object? Why did it vanish with its keepers? And why, even today, do fragments of its story surface like driftwood along forgotten coasts, appearing, then vanishing again, as if the mystery itself resists being found? The compass should have been a symbol of certainty, a device to lead men safely across uncharted waters. Instead, it became a symbol of doubt, of silence, of paths broken before they reached their end. From ancient voyages across freezing seas to strange finds unearthed in bogs and riverbeds, the compass remains both a key and a question, a reminder that not all mysteries exist to be solved. Stay with this story because its trail is more twisted than any map can chart, and its final destination may never be found. In the late 10th century, Norse explorers pushed westward, leaving behind the jagged fjords of Greenland in search of a fertile coast described in whispers as Vinland. Their longships carved across iron-gray waters, sails heavy with salt spray, guided by sunstones, the stars, and, according to scattered accounts, a wooden compass unlike any seen before. The sagas speak of strange lands that seem to breathe with their own secrets, forests thick with shadows where no axe had fallen, rivers wide as seas that swallowed the horizon, and fruits so sweet and abundant they seemed like gifts from another world. The compass, it was said, guided them through fog that erased sky from sea, through storms where sun and stars vanished. But just as quickly as it appeared in the records, it disappeared into silence. Centuries later, archaeology confirmed what the sagas only hinted at. Viking presence was real. Proven at Lant O Meadows in Newfoundland, post holes marked their dwellings, iron rivets told of ship repairs, and charred remains spoke of hearth fires. Yet nowhere, amid these solid traces of Norse life, was any compass found. No fragments of carved wood. No shards of iron, nothing but rumor. Some accounts claim that one ship, carrying the compass, was lost to the deep, its crew swallowed whole by the sea. Others whisper that an inland expedition vanished without a trace, leaving only a half-burned campfire to mark their final stand. If the compass existed, why did it not endure, as so many other Viking tools have? Was it shattered by accident, hidden away, or deliberately destroyed? And why, after centuries, do whispers of it still echo in sagas, journals, and the hushed voices of sailors? What truly happened to the compass of Vinland? Legends cloak the compass in shadow, as though it was never meant to be seen in daylight. Some tales claim it was carved from driftwood struck by lightning, the grain of the wood burned and twisted, its surface etched with runes that glowed beneath the moon. Others describe it as cursed, spinning wildly near the forests of Vinland, as if the very land rejected the guidance of iron and wood. To some, it was not a tool of travel, but an omen of ruin. In Icelandic folklore, a broken compass doomed its bearer to wander endlessly, trapped in circles on both land and sea. Sailors whispered that ghostly light shimmered along the horizon whenever the artifact was near. Strange fires that lured ships from their course, pulling them toward reefs and shoals where waves devoured them whole. For many, the compass was not a promise of direction, but a beacon of disaster, and yet archaeology remained silent. Excavations across Newfoundland and beyond have uncovered post holes, nails, weaving tools, and rivets from Viking ships, but no compass, not even a fragment. Skeptics argue that no such instrument existed at all, that sagas stretch truth into myth, weaving superstition into history. But absence has its own power. Where no artifact is found, imagination thrives. Some suggest that fragments of the compass may still lie buried in peat bogs, preserved beneath centuries of silence. Others insist it was never an earthly tool at all, but a creation of story. A warning against arrogance, a myth shaped to explain why journeys fail. Still, the question lingers. If it was only legend, why do maps and journals from later centuries speak of it in hushed tones? Could the compass truly have crossed into history and then vanished without a trace? Scholars today offer two paths, the rational and the speculative. Some historians dismiss the legend outright. To them, the broken compass is nothing more than a mistranslation of the Viking solarstein, the famed sunstone crystal used to find light even in thick cloud and fog. In this reading, the compass was never a physical object at all, but a poetic image woven into sagas, a metaphor for guidance, later misremembered as a device that pointed north. Others, however, suggest something far more daring. They propose that the artifact may have been an early experiment in magnetism, crafted centuries before magnetic compasses appeared in Europe or Asia. If true, it would rewrite the history of navigation, placing Norse explorers centuries ahead of their time, armed with a technology the world should not yet have known. Speculation drifts into darker waters. Some believe the compass was deliberately hidden by its makers, sealed away after sailors whispered that it carried misfortune. Others claim it was less an invention and more a curse, that wherever its needle turned, famine, shipwreck, or disappearance followed. And then there are the sightings. A carved wooden disc found on a lonely beach, a fragment of iron etched with patterns that matched no known Viking craft. Each discovery is quietly dismissed by science, yet the rumors never vanish. They return again and again, like the tide. If no one can prove the compass real, why does belief persist? Why do stories of its fragments echo across oceans, resurfacing from Iceland to Newfoundland as if refusing to be buried? Could the broken compass still be waiting, hidden beneath earth or sea, for the one hand bold enough to claim it? The compass of Vinland was meant to guide, but instead, it vanishes into the mist of history. Whether it was real or imagined, a relic of wood and iron or a creation of fearful minds, its story refuses to die. Perhaps the compass was lost at sea, carried down into the black silence of the Atlantic. Perhaps it splintered in the forests of Vinland, buried in soil where no hand will uncover it. Or perhaps it was never truly an object at all, but a story meant to test us. A reminder that not all mysteries can be charted, and not all journeys end with answers. Fog rolls across the coastlines where Vikings once sailed, and the waves still crash against shores they named but never claimed. Somewhere in that vast silence, the compass of Vinland remains broken, yet unbroken in memory. Its needle will never settle, its story never fades. And perhaps that is the truest mystery of all. Beneath a veil of northern fog, on a lonely stretch of Scandinavian coast, lies a secret that refuses to rest. The air is heavy with silence, broken only by the cry of distant gulls and the whisper of waves against the shore. Here, the soil hides more than stones and roots. It hides a shadow. It is not a treasure hoard, nor a king's hall, but an empty grave, a Viking ship buried deep in the earth, with no name, no markings, and no body to claim it, no warrior's bones, no weapons of honor, no gold or silver to guide the spirit, only the ghostly outline of a vessel pressed into the ground, as if waiting for a passenger who never came. Why would an entire ship be interred without its warrior, without its chieftain, without even the bones of the dead? Was it a grave meant for a lost soul swallowed by the sea? Was it a ritual interrupted, or something far more ominous? An intentional act of forgetting? Scholars and storytellers alike have searched for answers, but the silence of the soil holds its mystery fast. Tonight, we sail back through time, into the age of raiders and traders, of gods and ghosts, to confront one of the strangest riddles of the Viking world, the unmarked ship burial. Stay with us, for this is no ordinary tale of the past. It is a story of shadow, loss, and the haunting question of what it means to be remembered or erased. The Viking Age, from the late 8th to the 11th century, was an era shaped by conquest, commerce, and the restless hunger of the sea. Longships, with their sleek hulls and dragon-headed prows, were not mere tools of travel. They were emblems of power and prestige, designed to glide across storm-swept oceans and shallow rivers alike. They carried warriors into battle, traders into distant ports, and the dead into the afterlife. To be buried with one's ship was the highest honor a Viking could attain, an eternal voyage into the unknown, borne by wood and sail. But on a lonely headland, far from crowded settlements, lies a grave that defies this tradition. Archaeologists digging into the earth uncovered the ghostly outline of a longship. Its planks had long decayed, leaving only the dark impression of its shape in the soil. Yet within that hollow, there was nothing. No shield laid across a chest, no sword resting at a side, no ornaments of bronze, silver, or gold. And most haunting of all, no bones. A burial meant to carry a soul into eternity had been left unclaimed. The ship sat like an empty coffin, sealed without a body, a monument to someone who either never arrived or was never meant to. Who was this grave for? Was it a king denied his rest? A warrior lost at sea, honored in absence? Or had something darker taken place? An erasure of memory, carried out with ritual silence? The absence itself speaks louder than presence, like a voice calling from beneath the soil. But what force could strip a Viking grave of its dead? In the Old Norse sagas, Thales whispers ships touched by curses, vessels that no man truly owned, said to belong instead to restless spirits. Some stories speak of phantom ships that sailed without crew, their sails glowing faintly in moonlight, drifting through fog as omens of death. Others tell of vessels claimed by the gods themselves, dragged from the earth and into the night sky to burn as ghostly lights. Strange flames that wander above marshes and fjords, luring travelers astray. There are darker legends still. Stories of funerals disrupted where rival clans or jealous kin desecrated a burial. tearing away the body to deny its rightful journey. In Viking belief, to rob a ship grave was more than theft. It was to wound the spirit, to leave it stranded between worlds. Yet when the site of the unmarked ship burial was carefully examined, the earth told a different story. The soil showed no scars of intrusion. The timbers had rotted in place, undisturbed. There were no traces of broken weapons, no scattered ornaments, no shallow pits suggesting Luther's hands. From the beginning, the grave had been empty. It was as if the ship had been prepared as a stage, set with ritual precision. Yet the actor never entered. A performance denied its central figure. A vessel awaiting its master, who never came. And still, the superstitions linger. Was the missing body denied its place as punishment, shunned from both memory and afterlife? Or was it carried away by unseen forces, stolen not by men, but by something beyond the reach of soil and wood? If no thief left their mark, what then erased the dead? Among scholars, one of the most common explanations for the unmarked ship burial is that it served as a cenotaph, a symbolic grave for someone lost to the sea. Countless Viking warriors vanished into storms and waves, their bodies never found. To honor them, the community might have buried a ship in their stead, offering the vessel as a surrogate body, a passage into the afterlife even without flesh or bone to carry. Others believe the burial was prepared for a great leader, but for reasons lost to time, the ritual was never completed. Perhaps death came suddenly in a far-off land, and the body could not be returned. Perhaps political turmoil disrupted the ceremony, sealing the grave before the corpse ever arrived. In this view, the ship was not forgotten. It was left waiting, suspended in unfinished ritual, a tomb without its king. Yet the more speculative theories strike a darker chord. Some suggest the absent body belonged to an outlaw, someone so disgraced that their memory was erased and their corpse forbiddens the dignity of rest. Others whisper that it could have been a sorcerer or a seer, whose power was feared even in death, their spirit considered too dangerous to bind to soil and wood. And then there are those who see the grave as a deliberate warning, an empty monument carved into the land not to honor the dead, but to unsettle the living. A reminder that even ships, the heart of Viking life, could be claimed by forces greater than any warrior or king. Yet the earth remained silent. Was this a mistake of history, or a silence chosen with purpose, left behind for us to puzzle over? The unmarked ship burial stands in its silence, a riddle carved into the land. No sword, no crown, no bone remains. Only the ghostly imprint of a vessel once meant to carry a soul across the unknown. Was it a cenotaph, a curse, or a crime erased by time? We cannot say. What is certain is this: in a culture that lived for memory and feared being forgotten, this grave speaks with the loudest silence of all. And perhaps that is its secret, an eternal reminder that even the strongest of ships and the fiercest of names can be swallowed not by the sea, but by forgetting. Beneath the shadow of Norway's cold mountains lies a forge, long abandoned, where the sound of hammer and steel has not echoed for centuries. The ground around it is frozen. The pines lean close as if listening, and the wind carries a chill that lingers too long. This place is known as Halvard's Forge, a site that once roared with fire and iron, but now lies in uneasy silence. Inside, the stone walls are blackened, scarred by flames that never seem to fade. Yet it is not the silence, nor the soot, that unsettles those who dare to enter. Carved into the base of the forge are markings, symbols older than runes, etched deep as if by fire itself. The shapes twist and spiral like flames caught mid-dance, impossible to mistake, yet impossible to decipher. The story passed down through generations speaks of Halvard, a master smith of the Viking age, whose blades were sought by warriors across the fjords. Then, one winter night, both the man and his apprentices vanished. The forge stood empty, tools scattered, the embers still glowing as if abandoned in haste. No body was ever found. No answers given. What do these strange signs mean? Why did Halvard disappear without a trace? Tonight, we journey into the silence of that forgotten place. A silence broken only by mystery. In the 10th century, during the height of Viking power, Halvard's forge was a place of both fear and reverence. His weapons were unlike any others in the north. Warriors claimed his swords cut through chainmail as if it were cloth. Some said his axes bit deeper, struck truer, and seemed to thirst for battle. Jarls competed for his work, and whispers of his craft carried far beyond the fjords, reaching the ears of kings and raiders alike. Yet power and fame came at a cost. One winter, when the snow fell heavy and the seas froze, Halvard and his apprentices disappeared without a trace. The forge was found eerily intact. The fires still glowed faintly, casting embers that refused to die. Hammers, chisels, and unfinished blades were scattered across the floor, as though abandoned in mid-strike. The air smelled of iron and ash, but no voices echoed within the stone walls. Then came the discovery that chilled even the bravest: markings carved into the anvil's base, scorched into the soot-dark rock. They were not runes of the elder Futhark, nor the later younger runes known to Vikings. Instead, the symbols coiled in spirals, curling like tongues of flame, etched too deep for any normal hand to carve. Local sagas spoke of bargains struck with unseen forces, of weapons born from fire and shadow, of secrets bought at terrible cost. Was Halvard consumed by the power he pursued, or was he taken by something darker? What power hides within those strange engravings? Folktales passed down through generations describe Halvard as either blessed or doomed. Some say Odin himself guided his hammer, gifting him secrets of metalwork that no mortal should possess. Others whisper that Halvard's skill came not from the gods at all, but from shadowed beings who walked out of the deep forests when the mists were thickest. These beings, neither friend nor foe, demanded a price for every secret shared at the forge. Stories tell of villagers who avoided the place after dark. They spoke of ghostly lights drifting above the roof, pale blue flames that flickered without heat, rising and falling like breath. On stormy nights, some swore they heard hammering within, though the forge was long abandoned. Children were warned never to step inside, for the markings carved into the stone were said to twist the mind of any who traced them with their hands. When archaeologists studied the site centuries later, they expected to uncover simple explanations. Yet no human remains were found, no traces of a struggle, no collapsed beams or signs of burning beyond the ordinary scars of a blacksmith's trade. Only the markings remained, etched so deep into granite that even modern tools struggle to measure their cut. Rain, snow, and centuries of ice have failed to wear them away. Were these symbols the work of an inspired craftsman, or a sign of something far older and more dangerous? If neither body nor weapon was ever found, then what truly became of Halvard and his apprentices? Today, researchers attempt to ground Halvard's legend in reason. Some argue that the disappearance was nothing more than a raid. Rival clans may have stormed the forge, taking its smiths as captives and erasing their presence. Others suggest a simpler explanation, that Halvard and his apprentices fell victim to disease, famine, or an accident that left no trace. The markings, they insist, could be no more than practice cuts made by a mason, ornamental, misunderstood, and magnified by centuries of rumor, but stranger theories persist. A handful of historians note that the spirals resemble motifs carved into stone long before the Viking Age, patterns found in ancient petroglyphs scattered across Scandinavia. Could Halvard have uncovered rituals or symbols that predated his people, weaving forgotten lore into his work? Fringe theorists go further still. Some claim Halvard was experimenting with forces beyond iron and fire. that he sought to bind the essence of flame itself, creating weapons alive with power. Others point to maps of supposed ley lines, invisible paths of Earth's energy, suggesting the forge stands at a crossing where strange phenomena gather. The skeptics dismiss these claims as fantasy, yet the question remains. If the markings are meaningless, why have they endured while every tool, every wall, every fragment of Halvard's forge crumbled under time's weight? Why do the symbols alone seem immune to the centuries? Could they hold a secret that scholars refuse to admit? To this day, Halvard's forge stands silent, its walls cold, its anvil cracked. The strange markings remain, as vivid as when they were first carved, refusing to fade with time. No one knows if they were warnings, instructions, or something far darker. What is known is that Halvard vanished, his legacy reduced to whispers carried on the wind through pine forests and mountain fog. Travelers who pass the forge claim to hear faint hammering in the distance, though no fire burns within. The mystery of Halvard's markings endures, a riddle in stone, and perhaps it was never meant to be solved.